It all started with Toyota. Toyota's often, well, not often, it is seen as being the start, the innovator, with their famous Kanban system that has been the inspiration for just in time. And I've just picked out a nice quote from the Toyota website that tries to explain what just in time means. And very succinctly, they say it's about making only what is needed, when it's needed, and in the amount needed. And you can see from that, therefore, that should help eliminate waste.
What is just in time, or JIT, or JIT, which sounds almost inappropriate? So let's say your customer buys something and you don't make or distribute that part until they do so. And then with that time, at that moment that they purchase it, you combine that with your little bit of lean inventory, boom, you have the just-in-time process. So what is the good part of that process? Well, it makes for a lean inventory. You're not keeping a bunch of items on hand and wasting money, which also leads to freeing up capital. You don't have a bunch of things sitting on yourself, so you have capital to invest in other areas of your business. Plus, it keeps you on task. When you're making something, the moment that order comes in, you know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Unfortunately, there's some bad associated with just-in-time. There's delays. The slightest little hiccup can really set you back and create a stock out. If your vendor priorities are off, meaning if they're not serving you hand and foot, or if you are not one of their number one priorities, a little backup on their end means a backup on your end, which is not a good thing. And if you deal with seasonality in your business, well, it's hard to predict what's coming down the line, and all of a sudden you may get a big influx, and you can't prepare for that or accommodate that in time. So here's the ugly truth about just-in-time. Yeah, it sounds great to keep a lean inventory and only make something when it's ordered, but the only way that works is if you as a company have fixed bills of material, if you make a very few select products, if you have all this diversity, man, you're gonna have a real headache trying to do just-in-time, and you're able to ramp up or scale very quickly. On top of that, you need to have constant demand. You don't really fight seasonality. And you need a dedicated vendor who treats you essentially as their first order of business so that you are always supplied the moment you need it. So there aren't a lot of businesses that this works for. It can work in the automotive industry, a few other places, and maybe it works for your business in your industry.
Well, how does it work? Well, essentially, it works on the basis of customer orders determining what inputs you need into the production process, called a pull system. And with some complex, specialist, technical organization, always software driven, the production process identifies what inputs are required, and then logistics sort out to make sure that those inputs are there when they're needed. So the supplies are only delivered into production, onto the production line in the factory, as and when they're needed. As you can imagine, that's very complex. It requires some very specialist expertise and software, and it requires very close cooperation with suppliers who are reliable and can deliver in accordance with the requirements of just in time. So let's just quickly spend a minute just thinking about what the upsides, the benefits are, and the potential drawbacks or difficulties with JIT. Well, we've mentioned 2 or 3 of the benefits already. Firstly, if you get it right, it means that you're holding lower stock. We just produce what's needed when it's needed, therefore not having to hold large amounts of stock of work in progress as well as finished goods. Therefore, there's a working capital or cash flow benefit by holding lower inventory. And another consequence of that is that we're less likely to have obsolete inventory. Another benefit of JIT is that by this relentless focus on highly efficient production scheduling, you should find there's less time and less cost involved in getting the work done right first time. The drawbacks essentially arise out of, firstly, the complexity of JIT. It really isn't easy to do, and don't underestimate how difficult JIT is to organise. It means that the business is highly reliant on suppliers, and clearly if they are not able to deliver the required inputs on time, the whole production schedule can either be delayed or stopped. And also there is, I guess, a downside or a drawback, which is that it may be harder to respond to sudden increases in demand. if the JIT system is not able to respond in terms of adding extra inputs into the production process. But I think generally the key drawback, if it is a drawback, the challenge of JIT is that it's incredibly complex, not easy to do. Therefore, for small businesses, don't just simply argue the case for introducing JIT because it's complex as well as costly. JIT fairly widely used, particularly in more complex and larger scale manufacturing processes. Fairly recently, the debate around Brexit has focused on the use of JIT by the UK automotive sector, a highly efficient, highly productive manufacturing sector in the UK. But they have concerns that delays to the flow of components, in particular across the borders, could significantly damage their highly efficient JIT systems here in the UK.